You ever look at your family and just wonder, wait a minute, why am I the only one who, right? Well, genetics can definitely feel like a giant puzzle sometimes. But today, we're going to solve a real family mystery that perfectly breaks down how our incredible genetic code actually works.
And it all starts with a really simple taste test, one that, believe it or not, brings up a super fascinating question about how traits are really passed down from our parents. Okay, so check this out. There's this chemical. It's called PTC. And for some people, it tastes incredibly bitter. But for others, absolutely nothing. Now, the person who shared this story, they couldn't taste it at all. But here's the kicker. Both of her parents could. I mean, how is that even possible? It feels like it totally defies basic logic, right?
So, that's the big question we're going to tackle. And to figure it out, we've got to zoom way, way in. I'm talking about going right to the source, to the instruction manual that makes you, well, you.
See, the key to solving this whole taste mystery is buried deep inside our cells. It's all wrapped up in this incredible molecule that holds the blueprint for, well, pretty much all living things. And that molecule, of course, is DNA. It's kept safe and sound inside the nucleus of our cells, and it contains every single instruction needed to build and operate our bodies. Now, DNA has that famous shape you've probably seen a million times, the double helix. Just think of it like a twisted ladder. You've got the two long sides that make up the backbone, and then the rungs. That's where the real magic happens. That's where the genetic code is actually stored. So what's this ladder even made of? Well, it's built from millions and millions of these tiny little units called nucleotides. You can think of these as the absolute fundamental building blocks of our entire genetic code. And what's wild is that if you get right down to it, each of these building blocks is surprisingly simple. Every single nucleotide just has three parts: a phosphate, a sugar, and then one of four nitrogen bases. Those are the famous letters A, T, C, and G that literally write out the code of life. Okay, here's a great way to think about it. Imagine a nucleotide is like a single Lego piece. By itself, it's not much, right? But when you start snapping millions of them together in a very specific order, you can build something unbelievably complex, like, say, the complete set of instructions for an entire human being.
So this is how the information actually gets stored. Remember the rungs of the ladder? Well, they're formed by pairs of these bases, and they follow one simple, beautiful, universal rule. A always hooks up with T, and C always hooks up with G. That's it. This simple pairing is the foundation of, well, pretty much all of genetics.
Okay, so we have this incredibly long ladder of code. But how does that translate into the traits we actually get from our parents? It turns out it's all about how this stuff is packaged. Our DNA is ridiculously long. I mean, if you stretched it out, it would be huge. So to fit inside our tiny cells, it has to be coiled up super, super tightly into these structures we call chromosomes. And in most human cells, you'll find 46 of these chromosomes, all neatly organized into 23 pairs. And this is where you come in. Your genetic code isn't from just one person. Nope, you get one full set of 23 chromosomes from your mom and a matching set of 23 from your dad. That's what makes you a perfect 50-50 genetic blend of both your parents. Okay, so let's bring this back to our taste guest. For any specific gene, like the one for tasting that PTC chemical, you actually have two copies of it, one from each parent. And these different versions of a gene are called alleles. A great way to think of them is like different flavors or different options for a single trait. All right, so if we've got two different sets of instructions, two alleles for every single trait, which one wins out? How does your body decide which one to actually use? This question takes us right back to the heart of our PTC mystery. And the answer all comes down to two key concepts: dominant and recessive alleles. A dominant allele is kind of like a loud voice in a conversation. You only need one copy of it, and boom, that's the trait you're going to see. A recessive allele, on the other hand, is a bit quieter. Its trait will only show up if you get two copies of it, and there's no dominant one there to shout over it. Just take a look at this. Over on the left, we've got a dominant trait. See how if a kid has it, at least one of their parents has it too? It pretty much shows up in every single generation. But now look at the right. That's a recessive trait, and this is fascinating. Notice how two parents can be what we call carriers. They don't actually show the trait themselves, but they're carrying that hidden gene, and they can both pass it on to their child. And boom, that right there solves our mystery. The ability to taste PTC is a dominant trait. Let's use a big T for that. And not tasting it is recessive, so little t. Now, both parents could taste it, which means they each had to have at least one big T. But they also each secretly carried that hidden recessive little t allele. And then, just by pure chance, they both happened to pass that little t down to their child. The child ends up with two little t's, and that's why they're a non-taster. Mystery solved.
So now that we've cracked the code on that, let's take a quick look at a couple of the classic tools that geneticists use all the time to track these traits and even predict the odds.
First up is something called a Punnett square. It's really just a simple little chart that lets you map out all the possible gene combinations from two parents. It's awesome because it gives you the actual statistical odds for each potential outcome. You know, like that 1 in 4 or 25% chance of getting that TT non-taster we just talked about.
And the second tool is a pedigree chart. This is basically a family tree, but specifically for tracking a single trait. By using just a few simple symbols, like squares for males, circles for females, you can see exactly how a trait, like our PTC tasting, travels through generations. You can even figure out who must have been a carrier.
You know, figuring all this out isn't just a fun mental puzzle. Understanding our genetic code has some really profound and honestly increasingly important implications for our health and for our future.
And this is really where the science meets the real world. Professionals called genetic counselors, like Jacqueline Haven, do amazing work. They help people make sense of their family's genetic story. They can take really complex information, like your risk for certain conditions, and translate it into meaningful choices, basically empowering you to take more control over your own health.
So in the end, our DNA is so much more than just a code. It's like a history book written by generations of our ancestors, and at the same time, it's a potential glimpse into our future. It connects us to where we came from and gives us some incredibly powerful information to help shape what comes next. So it really makes you think, what questions would you want to ask your own genetic story?